G'day everyone. We're here today in our food room for a biscuit recipe and it's called chocolate and macadamia biscuits. So before we make a start on any of our cooking, we need to make sure they're all organised. I've been to the sink and I've washed my hands, and I've washed my hands for the length of singing the happy birthday song. I have my hair up and I have my apron on. My ingredients are on the trolley and all my equipment is laid out ready to go. So the first thing we're going to be doing today is we're going to be chopping up our macadamia nuts. So I'm going to put the oven on to 180 and I'm going to turn the fan on. When we're cooking in the room, it's never one person's job to turn the oven on because we do a lot of our recipes in pairs, so it's actually two people's responsibility. So I would get my buddy to check my apron, especially if it's a gas oven, and as the teacher in a room and my food assistants, we often tag each other and say, okay, I'll go check that the ovens are on, and then we let each other know that that job is done. So we have considered our safety in the room. So I'm going to start with getting the macadamia nuts, and I'm going to put them on my board. And I'm going to chop those up. I'm just holding the end of my knife down and working around. Sometimes you get the students that bang things down. There's really no need for all the banging. Oh, this will chop it itself. Slippery sucker that gets away. Good. Okay, I'm going to put that on a baking tray. Spread that out. And that's going to go in the oven for 6 to 8 minutes. Now you've really got to be careful that this is only 6 to 8 minutes because we don't want them to burn. So I'm taking a note of the time. I've got 6 minutes until I can get those out. Here we have our trolley with our ingredients on there and our tea towels and aprons underneath for students. We need 1/3 cup of macadamia nuts, which we're going to finally chop up and put in the oven. We need 1 1/4 cups of plain flour, 1/2 teaspoon of baking paper. We need 125 grams of butter. Now that's to be softened because we're looking at doing a creaming method today. We need 1/4 cup of soft brown sugar, some caster sugar, some vanilla essence, an egg, and some white choc bits. So that's our ingredients, and then we'll put them all together. I'm now going to take my 125 grams of butter that I've chopped up, and I'm going to put it in the microwave to soften it. Now we don't want it melted this time because we are going to add the butter a little bit at a time. While that's just on, I'll just grab my sugar. So I grabbed my 1/2 cup of my 1/3 cup of caster sugar, and that's going to go in there. Just checking my butter. Oh, yeah, awesome. Getting it in. And I'm going to get my brown sugar, which is 1/4 cup. Now again, all the ingredients have been laid out, and I've used the correct measuring cups and the knife is in there, and each one is separate so we don't have any cross-contamination. Okay, so I'm just going to check on my macadamia nuts and they're looking lovely. We often get the nuts that are really overdone, so you just want to put them in for that allotted time. Now that's coming out of the oven and sitting on a cooling tray. Now the biscuits need to go on to 180, so I'm going to leave that on while we make the rest of our biscuits. I put my butter into the microwave to soften, Now, if you have a look, I can make mistakes as well. I have actually overdone that. I put the butter in for 20 seconds and it's a bit too melted, whereas we really only need it to be softened. So putting it in for a 10-second burst to check that is fine, is better. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my butter into a bowl. And I'm going to get my vanilla essence, of which I need a teaspoon. Now I'd love to say I remember all the measurements and all the ingredients, but I don't. So that's why you'll see me checking my recipe, which is on my bench. Put that aside. Now I'm going to start to cream that together. So creaming the butter, vanilla essence, both the sugars until they're light and fluffy. And then I need to gradually add my egg. So I'm just going to get my egg sorted. I'm going to do that in a little bowl. And I'm going to grab a fork and give that a stir. So then I have everything ready to go. I'm going to grab my beater. Now beating can be a whole nother thing in a food room. So the idea for students is they need to be watching what they're doing and not get too excited about the beating aspect of it. Put my egg and my sugars, and I'm going to turn that on and it'll get nice and noisy. Okay, you can see that's coming along beautifully. I'm just going to take a a knife, and get some of that mixture off the beaters. Now, if I was at home, I would think about licking the beaters, but I'm not a big fan of raw egg. And in the food room, it's just a no-go. There's definitely none of that. Licking fingers, licking beaters. They can do that all they want at home. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do to that is I'm going to add my flour and my baking powder. So my flour, I need to get 1 1/4 cups. So again, take a heaped measure and use the back of your knife to do that. I'm just going to grab my spoon. Put that down the bottom. We have 1. And then we have 2. And I'll grab the baking powder. Again, everything has different equipment for all of that. So make sure, just level that off. Moving things out of the way so we're keeping our workspace nice and tidy. Get that last little bit. Going to grab my nuts that we have made earlier. That gets put in. And everyone's favourite is some chocolate, so we've got some white chocolate bits in there ready to go. I'm going to grab my spoon and I'm going to mix all that up. Now I suppose I tend to have one hand on the side of the bowl, and you may have noticed that I give my bowl a turn as I mix my ingredients. You don't have to. I think it's just a way for me to make sure that I'm thoroughly getting it. Making sure you get the side of the bowl as well. You can see the mixture starting to come together. And as I've said before, you want to make sure that the mixture in the bottom of the bowl is coming together as well. A little bit of work. Okay, I think that's sorted. Just moving that one aside. I'm going to get a baking tray that has the baking paper on it, ready to go. And our very technical scoop and scrape technique, I'm sure there's a word for it, but this is what we're doing. And I'm scooping and I'm scraping. Now I wonder if I actually took oh yeah, so that might be nicer. So I'm actually going to put, it's a little bit sticky, but it's pretty good. I'm going to grab my mixture. So you can see that I have put my mixture on my tray, and then I've just grabbed a fork to push that down to make it a little bit more decorative. I'm going to make sure my space is clean, and we're going to take that over to the oven, which is on. I'm opening the oven door completely, and I'm putting my tray in a landscape position so that it cooks nice and evenly. And I know my biscuits have to be in for 12 to 15 minutes, so I'm taking a look at the time. You can use a timer on your oven, or you could write it down so that you remember. Once all our food is ready to go, while that's happening, everything needs to be cleaned up. So it goes over to the sink. We'll wash our dishes, we'll dry them and put that all away. And when our food comes out, we've got a nice clean work area ready to put everything on.
Okay, so our macadamia nuts have been in for their time, which was 12 to 15 minutes. I've put my oven mitts on, and I'm going to open the oven door completely so it doesn't bounce back. I'm going to safely make sure my work area is got enough space, and I'm putting them on my cooling tray. What I will show you what to do is how to get your cooling tray out and leave your biscuits on the cooling tray with the paper. This is what we muck around and call a food hack. So your biscuits are really soft at the moment and they're really hot, but they will cool down, and taking the cooling tray out from underneath the biscuits will just help that. How beautiful does that look? Enjoy.
Cooking tray.